Hey, have you ever heard Jordan Peterson say you should never do something for a child that they can do for themselves? Well, the energetics of this have been coming to the surface of my inner depth recently, and I would like to talk about this from an inside out process. So, I am a parent who wants my children to have every opportunity that I didn't. I want to give them things that I never got. But the problem with that is I never got those things I'm still wanting to give them necessarily. And in some deferring, I have still deferred things that I want in my own life to other people. And what I mean by this is, when you're a kid and you're like, I want that horse. Why can't I have that horse? Just give it to me. It's right there, right? It's like obviously there for me to take. Why can't I have it? So those sensations of growing up and going like, well, it doesn't make sense. Why can't I just have this thing? The bar for my own inner capacity was set this high, right? And it was set this high because this is my family's bar. What they could give me and anything below it was the bar. And they couldn't give me that much. And that's no fault of their own. But if I was to say, I want that thing, I would hear, you're big dreaming, you're gonna have to work your ass off. I would hear, that's not possible. Actually, one time, my grandfather had a farm. And he had an empty horse stable. He had connections with multiple farmers. He kind of got an old horse that was needed a home. And I was begging him, I will take care of this. I will come every single day and feed it and ride it. And he said, you can't have that because your cousins would be jealous. So me and all my cousins went to this farm. It could have just been he got a solo horse, right? But what I heard is if you get something, other people won't like you. So that has a reverberation in my psyche even to this day. I trademarked Empoweress, and if you're watching this and you're trying to use Empoweress, please don't. It's trademarked. It's my intellectual property. I spent weeks going, what do I really do? Because I'm kind of psychic and beyond intuitive. I'm a coach and I work with generational trauma. It doesn't really is saying that I'm a psychologist or a psychotherapist or a coach. It just didn't fit. So I went for a walk in the woods one day, and it was 3 hours later after this walk, Empoweress. Oh, how has somebody not trademarked that yet? So I trademarked it because nobody was using it, and now people are trying to use it. And my old self would feel guilt, oh my God, I'm sorry that you're trying to use it, or I'm sorry I'm taking it back, or I would just kind of hand over my intellectual property. And it's, the invisible realm is nuanced. So what is property? And my position in my new book is going to call that intellectual property your inner kingdom, right? So that I would feel bad that I even had claim over my own territory. I would feel obligated to let other people onto my territory so that they could take the nutrients that I had been given. Even if my territory was wilting and being robbed and raped by other people, I would still go, come on in, you must not have it. Meanwhile, their territory might have been completely functional, self-sustaining, and that's how they had access to leave their territory to come in mine. But I was thinking, I feel bad if I reject anybody. So in the context of even this, I had to cease and desist people. And my old self would have felt very bad for taking that position because I had something that somebody else wanted. And it didn't come with ease necessarily. I wasn't comfortable with the process, but I didn't feel guilt for having something of my own for the first time, I think, in my life that I wasn't willing to give away freely. So this idea of doing things for your kids that they can do for themselves, right? I realize now on the other side of a big hump in my life that the bar that was set for me was not my bar. My bar was oh yeah, I totally could have that horse. I totally could go travel there. I totally could, why not? It doesn't make sense to me. Why not? But after years and years and years of quell those qualms, my desires were seen as qualms because, and as a parent, I understand this because when my kids want something that I cannot provide them, I become uncomfortable. But I will say things like, sure, you can get that when you grow up. Sure, like, let's plan for that miracle happening. Sure, let's, And when it comes to doing things for your children that they can do for themselves, the thing is kind of the same. The energetic of mastery, self-mastery, not other mastery, because I have deferred my dreams waiting for somebody else to give them to me because I learned you can only get what I'm willing to give you. And what I am was my family. And my family is blue collar, hardworking, anybody who has anything that's not grinding themselves to the bone is a spoiled, rich person, right? So this is the family that I come from. And I am a neurodivergent person. I cannot work myself to the bone and be productive. Just can't do it. So my bar was, I was raised for corporate America. I was going to probably be maybe a teacher at best to bridge the gap between myself. I mean, I literally got a tattoo at 15 to say to my family, I am not going to, because back in the day, you couldn't even get into corporate America with a tattoo. And that was my look, I got a tramp stamp. See, I don't even qualify. So stop grooming me for this lifestyle that I'm literally incapable of living. So the bar, ironically, they want to see me as here, but their bar is here. And if I want to stay under their bar, I would always stay here. So I still kind of wait for, it's weird to say this on a psychic level, but I still kind of wait for outer permission to receive the things my inner territory desires. I still wait for other people to go, oh, Stace, you should do this talk. You should do this thing. Instead of taking initiative action. Because I was punished for initiation. And I'm sure a lot of you were punished for initiation. If you walked toward that thing that you desired, whether it was harmful, I've punished my kids for initiating themselves enough to run in the road, right? But initiating, and I've also punished them for, and I don't want to say punish, but I make them get off. If they're climbing up the slide the wrong way, I make them get off the slide, right? So they're initiating actions, and I'm going, don't initiate. Initiation is scary, right? So when when our bar becomes our children's bar for themselves, most of the time because we are parents who wanted more for them than we got for ourselves, we still haven't given it to ourselves enough to give it to them. And that is a fundamental problem, right? Because then they are limited by our bar. Our bar becomes, if I can't give this to you, we think as a parent, I'm a failure. If I don't do my everything for you, I'm not being a good parent. But the reality is we're raising people, and we are people first. And when we do everything for our children and make them, it's not even about making them dependent on our outer doing. It's about the inner bar that is created in a psyche that believes, even if it's benign and benevolent from the parent that is imparting this information on them, whether it's stated or not stated, that believes that they do not have enough capacity in their self-agency to fulfill daily tasks or to get the things that they want. And that sense of mastery, my daughter has ADD, she's probably on the spectrum. Whatever she is exactly me, right? That much I know. She recently learned how to tie her shoes. She's 8 years old. And I wrote an article about this because I've never pushed her to tie her shoes, but I wouldn't put her shoes on for her either. They make it easy, you have those straps over your shoes. But when she was ready, we were getting shoes, and it was like a split-second decision for me. These are going to be the shoes I teach her to tie her shoes on. I've tried to teach her multiple times before, and she would have meltdowns. So I would just get her shoes that don't have ties. She, in 30 seconds, standing in this line, I taught her how to tie her shoes, and she was ready, right? I think a lot of us, we we don't know the nuance of time. We push before they're ready, or then we don't do it when they are ready. And in her readiness, it took her literally 3 minutes. Before we even got to the cash register, she had tied her shoes 3 different times, standing in the line to get those shoes. If I would have tried to teach her how to tie her shoes 8 months ago, there would have been an insane meltdown. So her capacity to do that was met by herself, even in the presence of me. But when she tied her shoes, she was like, oh my God, I can't believe I used to think this was so hard. But it's because she was ready. And if I would take that self-agency away from her and go, okay, I'm just going to tie her shoes. I'm just going to tie her shoes, even though I know now she's capable of doing it, what that does to her is, one, somebody else who's better than me is going to come in and do this for me. But the truth is, that person who knows how to tie your shoes might not be better than you at everything else in the world, right? Or like my mom or somebody else in my family who, I would think as a child, oh, they're better than me. Obviously, they're adults, they know everything, blah, blah, blah. They teach me how to do these things, or they yell at me for doing these things that they know how to do, is more like it. And they won't really have patience to teach me. But I would think that they have resources and they know everything, and they have resources I don't. But my daughter actually has resources that I don't, because I haven't taken them away from her yet, right? So there is this like big burst of when you come into the planet, oh, everything is possible, maybe, right? Depending on who you are. And then those are quelled. And then all of a sudden you're subdued and you have no sense of self-agency. You're waiting for the outer world to go, wait, can I? Am I allowed? Is that for me? And like in the case with Empoweress, I would have just been like, I'm sorry I had this and here, you can use it. But now it's an inside out thing for me where I'm like, oh wait, I am self-agent. That was my full ass 3 weeks of exploring, like, what am I? What is this? Like, and I'm original Empoweress, right? So I would have felt tremendous guilt for initiating that and then stating that that is true to my soul. And that, no, you guys, like, you can't really use that in the same context as me because you're not me. There would have been so much guilt. And there is a lot of guilt, even when I feel very privileged, even though I have, some people could look at me and be like, this girl's nuts. I am insanely privileged. I feel like the richest person I know because I have my inner resources back. Things that were taken from me that were a currency that is far greater to me than money. And only somebody who's had that kind of inner resources taken from them would come out and say something like that. That I would rather have self-agent inner resources than all of the money in the world and be hollow. So, because the self-agency believes that it will get you the things, but the hollowness believes somebody else has to come and you wait for that somebody else to save you. And that is what a parent who does everything for their child, who might be capable of doing those things, or a parent who says, you can't have that thing simply because I can't give you that thing. When a parent tries, and I get this as a parent of 4, right? My oldest is 20, my youngest is 5. I work through these patterns in myself. Especially with my older kids, I wanted to be their tippy top. I was the only person that they really had consistently to depend on. And my poverty as a single mother, my lack of internal resources, I couldn't be working full-time, going to school full-time, raising 2 kids on my own, paying all my bills on my own, and doing it on my own. I couldn't do that. My bar for what I could give my older children was incredibly limited, even though I wanted to give them the world, right? So if I kept myself as this, I have to be the Godhead, I have to be the provider, right? That was the thing. Like for me, like I have to provide them with all these things emotionally, physically, literally, and metaphorically. But I did not have capacity to give them what they actually deserved. So I'm sure many times I would go, no, you can't have that. No, we can't have that. That's not for us. That's what I used to say a lot. That's not for you. That's not for us. They pick stuff up in the store. That's not for you right now. But who's it for, right? It's like, well, why is this horse here? I can just have this horse. Why isn't it for me being a kid? And that is the kind of dreamer that I want back in myself, that it's taken me a really long time to kind of dig out that scene and put it closer to the surface and go, wait, you can come back to life again. And that's how we squelch our children, by giving them our bar. And if you're a person who had a dysfunctional life, you're a codependent empath, you have narcissistic abuse, you come from a dysfunctional family, your bar is probably far lower than you even think it is. Your wants probably piss you off because they're so far out there that you really don't see a way to get them. And the just getting out of bed and say, tie your shoes in the morning or something, that can feel very complicated to somebody who does not have a sense of self-agency. Taking a shower, right? It's like, if there's no mommy here, this is the thing. If there's no outer authority here, and you have to be wicked codependent and probably very empathic to even subdue yourself and surrender to this programming. But if there's no authority here, I don't know what to do. And this is a big ADD thing too. Like, if there's no one outside of myself telling me what to do and breathing down my neck, I don't have any momentum to move in the world, right? That's dangerous when you're an adult. It's also dangerous when you're a child, because the only way that things get done is somebody else breathing down your neck, and eventually you're going to resent that somebody else who's breathing down your neck, right? Because you won't want to do any of the things they're telling you to do. Take a shower. Oh my God, it's horrible. In that case, like, taking a shower would feel horrible. So just getting up in the morning and taking care of yourself. If you had parents who overly cared for you, you're going to rebel against that. I mean, in ways like showering and image, like, I sometimes wear makeup, but for a majority of my life, I have resisted the, like, I'm going to be a girl, I'm going to take care of myself in those ways, because I was overly groomed to be a girl, even though the misogyny in my family was insane, and they would cut my hair all the way off, even though I loved it long, because I didn't want to brush my hair because I have extreme sensory issues. So even taking care of yourself, if your bar was like, the only way to take care of yourself is image, you're going to resist the image, right? Or if taking care of yourself is like your parents didn't insist that you take care of yourself, it would be very complicated for you without, I'm going to venture to say that it's more the parent who kind of says, this is the bar, this is what you have to do, that makes it hard for somebody to care for themselves eventually. Because they always had somebody outside of themselves breathing down their neck going, you have to care for yourself, you have to care for yourself, you have to do this for yourself, while the person was doing it for them. So there's shame with doing. There's shame with inner agency. You're not doing this, so you must be deficient. So see, I'm right, and this is from the parent's view, I'm the only one who can do this for you, obviously. So I have to, and now I'm the parent resenting the child. But in those tiny cracks of moments where you go, okay, like that moment, I was like, okay, she's right. Like this is going to be the shoes that we learn on. I just knew it. And within 3 minutes, she was ready. She was able to have a sense of mastery, and the shock on her face that she could do it inspired me like crazy, because I knew in that moment her bar for herself was raised. And I also know in that moment that my bar for her was raised. And I was like, whoa, why is that? Why was my bar so low? What's going on here? Just because she's neurodivergent doesn't mean she can't do things for herself. And just because she's almost 9 doesn't mean I'm a failure as a mother because I didn't teach her how to tie her shoes before, right? That pocket, like staying in the pocket like a good drummer. It's like when you know that, okay, now's the moment, right? Or now's the silence, now's the space, now's the hit. When you follow that, it allows for both of you to have a sense of, okay, the bar is being raised. And I realized just because I was, shamed for doing some things, I don't have to shame my daughter for doing some things, but I still, even though I wasn't shaming her, had a belief in her deficiency. And I work with a lot of people who are like this, right? Like I have clients all over the world who have adult children that they still see as like, they look at them with a complete sense of lack and deficiency. And the role that they try to play as parents becomes obsolete then, because they realize I can't give 3 adult children and all of their families all of the resources in the world. And it's ironic that every client I work with who wants to be the person to give those people all of those things is also the only person who is criticized for not giving them all of those things. And what I mean by that is, so like in a situation where, and I could say this even with my mom, like my kids don't have any grandparents other than them. And because of that, when I was in relationship with my mom, there was a profound, like, I had an expectation she was going to be 4 people in one to make up for the fact that none of my children had any other grandparents but her. She can't do that. It's literally impossible for her to take up the energetics of what 4 other people, if we were in a tribal setting or a normal situation, would kind of take the hands of. Like, we don't have anyone coming in at us. It's literally us just on our own island. So the only time I would defer out from that island would be to her. And it would be like, well, nobody else is doing anything, so you have to. And she'd be like, well, I don't have the capacity to do that, right? But she would try and then resent that she was trying, not knowing that her bar and my bar, because I was under her umbrella, was so low that even in what she would try to do, like, we needed outside influence with other people, is my point. And I think as parents who think I have to do everything for my kids, I have to control how they're influenced. And it's, that's a fine line for me, man. I like founded the school that my kids go to. It's very important to me to know how they're being influenced, but also that influence is what shapes them in the outer world and their inner world. That's the dangerous part, right? But if we are their influence, and we think we are doing everything for them, we're actually doing them no favors at all. Because, I'm going to say it again, our bar, if we haven't done our own healing, and that's the thing, like, I worked with somebody for a long time, and then she was like, I can't work with you because my son has sports and I can't, like, pay for it. Which is totally, I get it. I live in a world of money. But as a child of a scenario like that, I would have personally preferred a family in therapy more than sports, right? So we try to pass a baton to our children and inner resources that we don't even have. So then we go, I have to give them these outer resources. And then we go to therapy just to figure out how to build the inner resources to be willing to create the outer resources for them. But our bar is far lower than we know it is for our own children. And that's probably why we want to do everything for them and be the be-all, end-all, and be the ultimate influence over them. But that's a very vertical, there's a far drop there. It's a very vertical positioning to want to be, and I'm not saying this is intentional in any way, but the idolatry there of, okay, this is one person who kind of gives me everything. And if we are wrapped up in that idea that we are the one person who gives them everything, first of all, our identity is going to be fucked eventually. But second of all, there's a far drop. There's a big gap. So we recently sold ducks. We had an unexpected brood, and we couldn't separate the male and the female because they were already bonded. And we all of a sudden had 10 ducks in our tiny backyard that became adolescents. It smelled really bad. We had to get rid of them. And we had these ducks for years, but this unexpected brood, they're ducks that weren't supposed to be able to actually formulate fertile eggs. So we were selling them, and I'm sobbing because I'm thinking to myself, I know this, we're selling them for slaughter. I know that, right? It's not said, but it's understood. And I felt like I should be the one to do that because I don't really eat duck. But if I was going to be killing them, I feel like I should do that because I birthed them. We raised them. And there's a big gap between the mind, and I hope this finds a way to be relevant for you, but between the mind that births and the mind that like sells an animal. There's a big gap in detachment. There's a hollow space between that versus somebody who can see the cycle all the way through, which is I birthed you, I raised you, and now I'm actually, because I know somebody else is going to kill you, I'm willing to do it. Getting our hands in that dirty work of life, it feels dirty. It feels, I don't want to because I don't have to. Just like, oh, I can take a pill for vitamins instead of like eat my vitamins. And I can go to the grocery store and get things instead of growing it from my backyard. I am a person who likes to live from the ground up, to grow things from my backyard, to eat it from, but I also live in America, so I go to the grocery store. But that disconnect, there's such a far fall in a vertical position when I say I need vitamins and I go to the grocery store instead of I need vitamins and I walk outside, which is a very horizontal position. And we live on the ground, right? And we're here to raise our children on the ground as regular people. But when we have this, I'm up here and I'm the disher out of goods. If we don't have the goods we're dishing out, we are stunting our children, because we can say all day, every day that we want them to be better than us, right? Or have a better life than us. That's why we do it. But the truth is, they probably have a better life than us if we had them on the ground with us, going outside picking vegetables. And I'm not saying like we did sell these ducks, but like for me to be able to go slaughter those ducks, it made me very uncomfortable that I was unwilling to do it, because I want to be full circle in my life. And I don't want to have hollow holes of, oh, I need lettuce, so I'm going to the grocery store instead of I need grocery store, which is the ultimate be all end all, right? That can give me that as long as I perform for it, as long as I have the money for it. Versus in the horizontal, oh, all I have to do is plant a seed and that performs for me. I don't even have to have the money for it. All I have to do is nurture it, walk outside and enjoy the nutrients of my life. So when we do everything for our kids, it's like we send them to the grocery store and we make them work for things that we could teach them to do on the ground. And teaching them to do it on the ground is more like we're sitting next to them, not standing over them. We're walking to, like, if my son will say, he's 5, and he'll say, can you get me water? I'll walk downstairs with you and get you water. So I'll walk with him, on the ground with him. But he does not see just this mother going, okay, here's this. I handed this to you. I am the bearer of things, because that makes me God and I am not God. There is way more that is providing my children's provision than me. And for me to believe I have to be the only thing is me negating the God that is. And of course, I believe that we're all God, right? But that I am a speck in that God wheel. And if I have my children believing that I am, look, I'm up here and I'm handing you this water, I am not here with them as people. And then their bar is not their own. Their bar is my height of 5'8". And eventually they won't really get to be beyond it if I don't get on the ground with them and go, I'm not just your parent, I'm a person. And I'm going to teach you how to be a person instead of a child. And of course, it has to be age appropriate, right? But that sense of getting on the ground with them and not letting there be gaps like there was in my discomfort of like, I'm unwilling to see this through to the end. I'm unwilling to slaughter these animals, which would give me a sense of mastery. I knew it. Like if I did that, I would feel masterful and more equipped to then raise more ducks. But raising ducks to sell them for slaughter felt as industrial and disgusting. And the only reason we did it was because we couldn't unpair those two. Like if we could have unpaired the couple, it wouldn't have gone this way. But we would have kept some for eggs and probably like slaughtered the rest. But it ended up that we had to sell them all. So that gap and that disconnect between, the grocery store and my mouth, I don't want that in my children. I don't want to be their grocery store. I want to be the person who's holding their hand beside them on the way to the grocery store. And a lot of times we think we have to be the be-all end-all. We have to be the one with the resources. And that's great. And we do have to have more resources than them. But if you haven't done the inner work to have inner self-agency, that's probably why you're taking self-agency away from your own children, right? And I might or might not post this video that it's got a lot of noise in it, but my daughter wants to be on my YouTube channel. And one of the things that she said in this interview, she insisted we do an interview, and we did it, and I'm going to pretend like I post it. Maybe I will. But one of the things she said was, she said a long time ago to me, Mommy, there's a part of me that's missing and you have it. And I said, hey, here, take it back. And she said, no, I don't want it back. And I asked her in the interview, why might you not have wanted that back? And she said, well, I can only imagine, she's 8, mind you, I can only imagine that I wasn't ready to totally change and be my whole self yet. And I wanted you to still kind of be responsible with myself. And that's fair, right? That's a fair thing for a kid to go like, yeah, I don't want to be, like, kids need somebody to steer the boat. I do not love when parents are like, oh, just let's go. You can go steer the boat. Let me follow you. Kids need somebody to steer the boat. But so I feel comfortable with her going, okay, I'm going to stand beside you while you steer the boat, and you're responsible with an aspect of myself that I'm not ready to be responsible for with yet. That's really insightful of her. And also, when we hold parts of our children's selves, they will haunt us for that thing and resent us for having it. And what I mean by that is also, if we do everything for them, they don't have a sense of self. And they see us as themselves. And if our self is at a low bar because we never raised our bar, because we're trying to compensate for the low bar we had by giving a higher bar to our children, but we don't really have a higher bar for ourselves, we cannot give our children a higher bar. So that sense of self-agency is something I would never want to take from her. And it's ironically the thing that most parents break their children of. And we think we're doing it because we want them to be themselves in a better world and blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, if we try to compensate for their lack and we try to be responsible for themselves, we are taking away their sense of self, so they don't know what they're really being responsible for. And that is the inner currency that I help people retract in themselves, so that they are within themselves enough to understand what their true energetic currency is. So we take that away from children by wanting to be the ultimate kind of self that provides everything for them, and positioning ourselves as such in the vertical. When I personally believe that it was awesome to sit next to my daughter and help her tie her shoes, instead of me, which is what in my experience would have happened. Somebody would have got down on there and said, I can't believe you don't know how to do this. This is ridiculous. Made me feel shame that I couldn't do something. And I would have thought, oh, she can do it, so I'm deficient. And then she looks at me like I'm deficient because she can do it. But there's a lot of things I can do better than that, right? There's a lot of things I could do better than tying my shoes, or like more than tying my shoes, that she couldn't do. But that sense of, I can't believe you can't do this. I'm getting on the ground to do this for you. This is ridiculous. I can't blah, 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 blah. It literally is robbing children of their own sense of mastery over life. And one day we're not going to be there. And what then? So, and then if they're like, they'll just be haunted by this idea that they knew you better than they knew themselves. They needed you more than they needed themselves. And I had to say to my daughter in that interview, she said, if I was totally myself, I would have a mansion and a horse farm. And I said, what would you say if I told you that it's yourself that brings you those things? Because again, she's waiting for like what most people do in life. When I get the mansion, when I get the horse farm, for me, it's like when I get the house by the river. She thinks that when she gets those things, then she'll be herself. It's 100% not true. When you become yourself, the self leads you to those things. But ironically, if you've lost yourself at any point in your life, once you gain yourself back, all of those outer things become completely obsolete, which is beautiful, because then you can feel self-agent and go, wait, I never needed what I thought I needed. I never even wanted what I thought I wanted. I wanted it because somebody else told me to want it, or I wanted it because somebody else told me that that would be an indicator that, look, I was successful. My success is in my own self-agency. And I want my children's success to be in their own self-agency, not in my bar of what they can have and what they can do. So I just want to give a little snippet on the reason why maybe Jordan Peterson says don't do anything for your kids that they can do for themselves. And I'm obviously not saying don't do anything for your kids that they can do for themselves, but I am saying, like, a lot of the time, the person who wants to do that is overcompensating to such a degree. And we might feel self-righteous. We might feel like we're saving our children because we're compensating with something that we never had. But that overcompensation is saturation in a way that if you put a plant in too much water, it cannot live on its own if there's not a hole in the bucket. So thank God for me, and maybe this is the bottomless pit of my kind of archetype, but thank God for me, I've always had a hole in my bucket. And I was unwilling to like stay overly saturated for too long. So, or also, you know, I would find a way to find some sunshine when there was none. I insisted upon it. I had lots of parts of myself that still believed in that. So oversaturation of something like that, you become your child's container instead of teaching them how to contain themselves. And in your container, they will drown. In their own container, they will have a hole in their bucket, and they will go, oh yeah, my mom did that for me, but look, it's, you know, water's pouring out the bottom, so I'm not oversaturated by it. But if you teach them to put a hole in their bucket because you're going to be the only, like the thing that's going to be the provider all of the time, they're going to drown, and then they're going to resent you, the only person who ever did all of the things for them. Which is ironic, you know, that it is that way a lot. I work with a lot of people who it's like they were the only thing that their children had, and their children don't want anything to do with them. And I think it's because of this program that I'm talking about right now. So I hope that this is helpful. I'm Stacy Hoch. My niche is in narcissistic abuse with codependent empaths. If you like this content, please subscribe and like. Thanks for having me. I'll see you guys soon.